Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on this lovely Friday afternoon. Making a stop during his book tour of his second novel, Whiter Shades of Pale, the stuff white people like coast to coast, from Seattle's sweaters to Maine's microbrews, Authors at Google is thrilled to host Christian for the second time. Please join me in giving a warm and hearty welcome to veteran white person, Christian Lander.
Awesome. Hey guys, thanks for having me back again. This is awesome. So, last time I spoke to you guys was in the summer of 2008, and up until that point, I told you the sort of story of how the blog started off as a joke with my friend Miles, the Filipino racist that I consider one of my best friends, proud racist, and how it just went from basically an idea on January 18th, 2008, to the New York Times bestseller by July 14th, 2008. It's a pretty wild story on the way up. You can hear all about it on my last talk, which is fairly easy for most of you people here to access. But since that day, since I was last here, a few things have happened to me, some very interesting things. So all throughout 2008, I kept thinking to myself, every day, this blog can't get any bigger. You know, the book, this can't get any bigger. This can't get any bigger. And then I talked to Google, and I was like, this really can't get any bigger. And then in August of 2008, after I left here, my publicist got a call from the Conan O'Brien show, or Late Night with Conan O'Brien. And they said, Christian, Conan would like to have you on as a guest. Now, this completely blew my mind because I had spent so much of my life, I have a personal vendetta against tall guys because I really, there's a number of reasons, but one, I feel like they've had an easier life than me across the board with everything, sports, women, career, whatever, it's been easier. So like, I always like to say life has worked out pretty well for me at a driver's license 5'9". You can think about that for a minute. A realistic 5'8". But, you know, if I was, for every inch taller I would have been, my life would have been 30% better. And so things worked out great at 5'8", but at 6'1", I would have taken over for Conan. So I'm so excited to meet him. He gets a pass on the tall person thing because he's funny, but also because he has red hair, and he knows the pain that we both went through as children, specifically the nursery rhymes about the color of our pubic hair. If any of you have redheaded friends, check this one out. It happened. And so I'm actually going to be on the show. And this is in 2008. And I'm freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, this is incredible. I'm going to be on Conan O'Brien. I can't believe it. So they're like, yep, this is definitely going to happen. September 6th, 2008. It's booked. There's a 100% chance it's happening. They cannot take it away from you. I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. So every day I'd go to the NBC website and I'd hit refresh 1,000 times a day because like I want to find out who the real celebrities are going to be on the show because it could be anybody, right? So I'm like, refresh. And it comes up. And the guest that day is Jerry O'Connell. Now, this may not impress all of you, but this was a big deal to me for a number of reasons. Reason number one, the TV show Sliders. No one watched it, I guess. It's a great show. Reason number two, Jerry was on a Canadian TV show when I was growing up, and I'm from Canada, called My Secret Identity. And the show was about him as a teenager with superpowers. Specifically the superpowers of being able to run really, really quickly and fly if he sprayed 2 aerosol cans down towards the ground. I should remind you that Canadian television is heavily subsidized by our government, and while sometimes it'll give us a Degrassi, other times it'll give us My Secret Identity. So I was super thrilled about that. Like, I'm really excited. I love Sliders. I love that. All this stuff was great. But there was one other reason why I was thrilled about this. One massive reason why. Please tell me you guys have seen the movie Stand By Me. Right? Yes. Okay. So in the movie Stand By Me, Jerry O'Connell is a fat kid. And this is especially important because I was a fat kid. And here's where it's going. Jerry O'Connell grew up to marry a Sports Illustrated swimsuit model. So he is literally a hero to every fat kid on earth, that you can be this chubby at 13 and still grow up and marry a swimsuit model. So I was so thrilled that I was going to get to go on the show and I was going to meet my fat kid hero. Like, I couldn't wait. And then the other guest was Tim Gunn from Project Runway. So totally excited about meeting Jerry. This is going to be the greatest thing in the world. And so I get to New York, September 6th, 2008. And I'm freaking out, and I'm in my dressing room. And the dressing room is really, really small. And I just remember in front of me was a plate of cookies. And I just remember looking at the cookies, thinking to myself, don't eat them, you'll throw up. Don't eat them, you'll throw up. And as a former fat kid, I really wanted the cookie, right? I'm like, I want the cookie. Don't eat it, you'll throw up. Don't eat it, you'll throw up. So I didn't touch the cookies. I just left them there. And I'm just totally trying not to vomit. My agent comes on to me and he's like, listen, man, you're going to be fine. Don't worry. You can do this. I believe in you. And I'm like, okay, I can do it. And so once I get my head together, I start thinking, I'm like, what are you supposed to do when you're backstage at a late night show? Like, I've never been to one before. I don't know what the etiquette is. Like, can I go over to Jerry's dressing room? You know what I mean? Can I start talking to him? Can I like knock on his door and be like, hey, Jerry, Yeah, remember when you were fat? Right? Like, can I do that? Really? And then I start having this weird paranoia. I'm like, oh my God, if I do that and it doesn't go well, he's going to go on the show and be like, yeah, Conan, you have a weird fat kid obsessed guy back there. You need to call security as soon as possible and get him out of here. And so I'm like, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to pretend like I'm cool. I'm going to pretend like I've been here before. I'm just going to stay in my dressing room. I'm just going to stay here until I go on the show. And so I'm waiting. And all of a sudden there's a knock at my door. And I look over, and it's Jerry O'Connell. And he points to my agent, and he goes, are you the guy? You the stuff white people like guy? You the stuff white people like guy? My agent goes, no, him. And I'm about to open my mouth to say something about how great he was and can't hardly wait. And he goes, oh my God, I read that blog all the time. It's so funny. Oh, it's hilarious what you do. I'm trying to get one more word. Like, you were good. And he just keeps talking how much he loves it. He's like, oh, it's so funny. All the entries. Oh, it's so great. The pictures. Where do you get those? They're incredible. And I'm like, yeah, Jerry. He's like, look, man, stick around for the shows and people I want you to meet, but I got to go. And he's gone. And I just look at my agent, and I'm like, man, I think I just met Jerry O'Connell. This is great. And he's like, yeah, you're fine, man. It's going to be all right. And so then Jerry O'Connell goes on the show, and he's absolutely hilarious. He's fantastic. And then Tim Gunn goes on the show, and he's great. And then it's my turn to go on the show. Now, everything that I tell you from this point on is based on the TiVoed episode of the show, because I blacked out the whole time I was on there. I don't remember any of this happening. I remember walking out, and I remember getting off the stage. So all of this from the TiVoed episode. So I get out there, and you have to understand the layout of the show. So Conan was here, I'm here, Tim Gunn's here, and Jerry O'Connell's here. So if you get the layout, like it's a 3-couch. I'm closest to Conan, Tim Gunn, Jerry O'Connell. So I'm out there, and the first question Conan asked me, he's like, so Christian, what are some things white people like? And I go, well, farmers markets. Right? And Conan's like, yeah, we do. And then, Tim Gunn's like, mm-hmm. And Jerry O'Connell's going like, oh my God! Oh, that's the funniest thing I've ever heard! Oh, that's where I get my onions. Right? And so I look over and I'm like, man, this is going great. And then Conan asked me another question. He's like, well, Christian, we got Tim Gunn on the show tonight. What are some clothes that white people like? And I'm about to open my mouth. I'm about to say something when I feel a hand. And I'm wearing a cardigan sweater at the time because I wear a lot of cardigans. And I feel a hand pinching me. And I look over. And Jerry O'Connell has reached over Tim Gunn and is pinching my cardigan, looking me in the eyes, going, sweaters! White people like sweaters! Say sweaters! And I always try to tell myself, I'm like, you know what? I am the guy who could be cool enough to be like, yeah, hey, Conan, Jerry's right. We like sweaters. No. I'm looking at my fat kid hero reaching over a reality television superstar, pinching me on national television. And so I just look at him, I'm like... I go back to Conan. I got nothing. I'm reaching back. I got nothing. I go, shorts? And Jerry hits the floor. He's like, oh my God! We wear them too early. Oh, it's so funny. And I'm just looking at him like, man, this is the greatest interview ever. And I look at Tim Gunn and I'm like, maybe not. And then go back to Conan and, we keep talking and the interview finishes. And I'm like, oh my God, that was incredible. I was just on Late Night with Conan O'Brien. I need to call some ex-girlfriends. Because I will tell you, if you ever do anything that gets marginally famous, the first thing you'll think about is, I need to call some ex-girlfriends. And so I'm backstage, and I'm like, wow, I really did. I hear this voice here, Christian! I go, huh? And I turn around, and it's Jerry O'Connell. And he goes, oh man, that was the funniest thing ever out there. It was awesome. Here are those people I wanted you to meet. It's my parents. And in my head, I'm like, I didn't know we were at this stage of the relationship yet, Jerry, but... all right. And so, he takes all of a sudden his phone rings. He's like, oh man, sorry, I got to take this. So now I'm alone backstage at the Conan O'Brien show with Jerry O'Connell's parents. And thank God they filmed that show in Toronto where I grew up, because we just talked about intersections and it filled the horribly awkward silence that was beginning to set in. And Jerry comes back and he's like, oh man, that is so funny. That is so hilarious. Let me get your info, man. We'll all get back to LA. Let's all hang out. I'm like, yeah, sure, Jerry. So I take down the info and, and I leave. And I'm thinking to myself, super awesome that I have this information, but how do you ever contact him again in not a weird way? Like, hey man, remember me? Super weird. So where does it come from? And so I let it go, and I thought that was a really awesome experience, and I may or may not have a fake email address here, but I'm just gonna go back home and everything's gonna be fine. So go back home. A couple weeks later, I get invited to be on Later with Carson Daly, where I was the headliner. It's a pretty big time show if you can't tell. And everyone's really nice though, but it was kind of weird to be the top billing. So I get there and I'm in my dressing room and everything's great, and I look on the wall, and on the wall is a picture of Jerry O'Connell singing. And my wife goes to me, she's like, look, you are never, ever going to find another non-weird opportunity to send him an email. You need to write something down. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do it. So I take my phone out and I write a quick message. I'm just like, hey, Jerry, I don't know if you remember me. We were on Conan O'Brien together a couple weeks ago, and I'm backstage at Carson Daly because I'm going to be on the show tonight, and there's a picture of you in the dressing room. Thought it was kind of funny. Christian, send. Boop. Awesome. I'm TiVoing it right now. Jerry. And so just looking at my phone, being like, what has happened to my life? Like, 9 months ago, I was goofing around the internet with Miles, and now I might have to get a restraining order against my fat kid hero. This is insane. And so that was happening in 2008. So I couldn't believe it. So I'd been on Conan O'Brien, I'd been on Carson Daly, and it was absolutely insane. And so the book kept doing really, really well. And then really interesting happened. The book was licensed to do some international editions. So the book went to Australia, where it was a bestseller, just sold really well in Australia. There's white people there. Sold really well in the UK as well, believe it or not, also. White people there. And it was translated into Dutch. And the amazing thing about the Dutch, they are a clever people. They, reclaimed all that water, and, they know what they're doing. So their book is, stuff white people look at. I don't know, I don't speak Dutch, but if you speak Dutch, you can translate roughly. And their cover, instead of the big thumbs up, which is what I refer to as the universal white gang sign. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's like that we recognize each other. They actually have a mirror on the book, so when you hold it up, it says stuff white people, and you're like. So the Dutch are sharp. They're very, very sharp. I appreciate what they did, but it was really weird to see all my words translated into a different language. And then this year, this is 100% happening. This is not made up. This is 100% legitimate. The book is being translated into Japanese. But there's like a million footnotes, you know what I mean, to explain like the sarcasm and all that stuff. But that doesn't prevent me from every day, every single day, I have a dream it's going to become a textbook. I have this fantasy, and it's a recurring fantasy, of being at the airport at LAX, Tom Bradley International Terminal, and I see Japanese businessmen coming out of the terminal wearing Fleet Foxes t-shirts, you know what I mean? And leaning forward and be like, oh, what is organic coffee, right? And then later on, I'm at the coffee shop, and I see them having a business meeting, and they're flipping through the book, and they're like, oh, so Frisbee sports, your son is gifted, And then somehow being able to negotiate a better deal with the American business, and it's my small part to create a trade imbalance between the two nations. But I just dream every day that that's going to happen. So just unbelievable, all the stuff that's happened in terms of the book. And then an amazing thing happened. The book was optioned to become a TV show, and I was hired to write it with a really great director. It was an awesome process. It didn't go anywhere. That's sort of just how television works. But the concept of the show was the wrong kind of white guy learning how to become the right kind of white guy from a black guy. And, the black guy carried around like a moleskin notebook with all these notes that he's learned from all of his time with white people. And it stems from the fact that when I started the site, so many people thought I was black. And you know what I mean? Then when they found out I was a white Canadian, they were super disappointed. Literally the exact disappointment I felt at 13 years old. You know what I mean? Like, damn it, I'm a white Canadian. I wish I was something else. And it's been funny. I've actually met a lot of black people who have come up to me and be like, you know what, man? Come on, this is kind of ridiculous. We've been saying this for years. Why didn't one of us write it down? And so that would have been the TV show. It would have been really funny. The whole thing was going to be set at like a Tom's of Maine, or like a Burt's Bees type company, with the tagline "Saving the World Through Vanity," which is sort of the joke. But sadly, ultimately, it didn't happen. And then the other thing that happened, that was kind of unexpected with the site, is the spin-offs. There have been so many spin-off sites, it's unbelievable. So 3 books have actually been published. Stuff Christians Like was published. Stuff Midwesterners Like was published. Stuff Hipsters Hate was published. And these are just like, these are people who got book deals basically using this concept. And then the sites itself that have spun out of this are amazing. There's like stuff black people like, stuff Latinos like, stuff Asian people like, stuff gay people like, stuff gay parents like, stuff Hill people like, stuff unemployed people like, stuff Hollywood assistants like, stuff Dutch people like, stuff Australian people like, stuff Korean people like, and so forth and so forth. And it keeps going. And a few of them really stand out as brilliant. In Australia, they made a site called Stuff Bogans Like, and we have an Australian who knows what that is. The rough translation is it's kind of like a frat boy, but it's really hard to find a one-to-one translation. So basically it's like stuff frat boys like, but they also created a website called Stuff Goths Hate that just redirects back to the Stuff Bokens Like website. And I'm just like, man, why didn't I think of that? And then there's another site that someone created, and I actually got to meet the creator of it, and I almost punched him out of jealousy. He created a site called White Stuff People Like. And its entries were like sugar and cocaine and plaster. And I was like, damn it, man. Like, I could have had two. Just with like a little word swap, and I would have had two. So, this was sort of the wild ride that happened. And so in the last couple of years, I've actually had time to sort of think about answering the question people always ask me, like, well, why did it get so popular? Why did the site get so popular? Why did the book get so popular? What happened? And I keep thinking back to it. I mean, luck is obviously a huge part of it, but I realized that it was basically two things helped the site grow. One were people who would get to the website and they'd start clicking on it and they'd look through, they'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, all right, I like that, all right, okay, yeah, I like sushi. Who doesn't like sushi? All right, I got it. Yeah, I like Kitchen Cat. All right, okay. Hang on, let me just take a look at the full list here. Oh my God. Did I leave my webcam on? What the hell's going on here? And then sort of, that fun and horror and like, oh yeah, the World Cup is coming up. Like that sort of like horror that like my entire life has been spelled out in this list and sort of sharing that experience. So that was one reason why it got popular. But I think the other reason it got popular and why it got sent around so quickly were people going to the site going like, yep, yeah, I know this asshole. Hang on. Forward, title, think you're unique? Send. Boom. And it went from there. It was like a giant, check to white people. And so I think those were some of the like nominal reasons why I think it got big. Those are sort of the surface reasons, but there were, I think, some marginally intelligent reasons behind why it got popular. And I think the first reason why is this whole concept of being white. And now I always like to say you don't have to be white to be white. You just have to be rich. And so to further illustrate that point, in the new book, the regional white person for San Francisco is actually an Asian woman. That's how I explain the power of San Francisco, a city so white it can turn other races white. It's incredible. And so this idea all came from my high school experiences. So I grew up in Toronto, Canada, and I went to a very interesting high school called Jarvis Collegiate. And it is right downtown Toronto. To give you an idea of how the school worked, we were this amazing, amazing school that drew students from the richest neighborhood in Toronto, Rosedale, two middle-class neighborhoods, and two of the poorest neighborhoods in Toronto, a housing project and a place for mostly new immigrants called Jamestown. And we all ended up going to the same high school. And what was really amazing was that literally every ethnic conflict on earth played itself out at my high school, specifically the wrestling mat, because we had a gym teacher with a political science degree. And he thought it was funny to have Tamils and Sri Lankans wrestle each other, or to have Serbs and Croats wrestle each other. And it was, believe it or not, actually fantastic. No one ever got seriously hurt. But when Ned and Marco were on the mat, boom, the whole school just poured into the gym to watch it happen. And so we had this really amazing mix of sort of immigrants. And before I get back to that, there's another thing about my high school that was interesting. We were also, our football field was very interesting. It wasn't a full-size football field. And I was on the football team. I was actually a 2-year varsity starter at offensive line. That's what happens when your school's made up mostly of Chinese and Sri Lankan immigrants. I am actually one of the fatter guys at the school. And so we would practice in the mornings. And the amazing thing about the school was the area around the field was the main ring for transvestite prostitutes in the city of Toronto. And so we practiced really early in the morning when they were ending their shift. And some interesting things happened. On one hand, they were prostitutes, but on the other hand, they were also Canadian, so they had a sense of humor. And so in the morning, the offensive line would get ready, and every time we bent over, they whistled at us. And I always say that as a 15-year-old boy, this causes you to come to grips with your sexuality awfully quickly, because you realize you have options. For the record, I did not have sex with any transvestite prostitutes in high school. And so back to the school. So back to Jarvis Collegiate, this amazing mix of races and cultures all coming together into one place. And what was interesting is it's Canada. So we had first generation immigrants who were brand new to Canada, but we also had, third generation Chinese Canadians, fourth generation Indo-Canadians, etc. So all in one place. And what was amazing that if you liked anything on the list from the first book or anything on the list from this book, you were called white. You were called a banana, an Oreo, a coconut, or whatever food stuff related to your skin color and had a white center at the middle of it. And this was just a lesson of Jarvis. We just knew that was going to be the case. And you were called that by, your own people, essentially. And so there was one guy at my school, a guy named Long, and he was a great guy, but he was third generation Chinese Canadian. Long was the guy who wore shorts way too early in the season. He'd break him out in April. He'd break him out in February. Long wore Teva sandals all the time. He played hacky sack every single day. He had a backpack, like a big backpack. He went camping all the time. He had one of those necklaces, like they were thick and they had like a random bead here and then like another one, like no symmetry to it. He liked jam bands, right? And so every day at school, Long got called a banana. Over and over and over again. And the thing about it was, Long in no way was ashamed to be Chinese. It wasn't that Long was trying to become white. Long was just rich. And so because of that, that's where he acquired these tastes, and that's where he acquired this, the unflattering nickname. And so that in and of itself was sort of this commentary on whiteness that was coming through in the book. Again, that you don't really have to be white, but what's incredible is that it's this group of people, these progressive, left-wing progressive, who believe that we're the most progressive people on earth, possibly the most progressive people in history. And yet our class is still so overwhelmingly dominated by white people that I could put a list out like stuff white people like, and people get it right away. People understand it right away. And so that in of itself gives you a sense of the level of progress that we've actually had in terms of the upper middle class liberal actually honestly diversifying. And so when I bring that point up to people, they're always like, well, then, what's the solution? Like, what's the fix to this? And I'm like, look, I don't say I have an answer, but I have some things that white people should stop doing that aren't making it any better. And so specifically, one of the things that white people like to do is show off their ethnic friends. And I don't think this is really helping at all, because ultimately you're not viewing them as a person, you're viewing them as a Pokemon. And I have this belief that white people do view their ethnic friends like Pokemon, gotta collect them all. And then eventually, you have a full set and you get a little red globe or whatever, and it all works out. But I kept saying, like, that is not the solution. It's having this group of ethnic friends is not a racial solution, because all you're doing is saying, look how progressive I am. It's still ultimately about you. It's not about your friends. It's not about any progression. It's still about you. And I just can't stop getting annoyed at white people who do this, because the more I write it and the more I realize from my own ridiculousness, because I do the same thing, is that all we want as white people, like all we really live for, is to eventually have, an old black guy come up to us and tap us on the shoulder and say, you know what, man, you're one of the good ones. That would justify our entire existence. Literally, everything that we do. I mean, ideally, our dream is that Che Guevara would come back from the dead and be like, man, you're the good white people, man. I support what you do. Hey, how'd I get on that t-shirt? But the reality is, if he came back, I would be the first person he killed. You know what I mean? He'd be like, you're an asshole. Bang! And I'd be done and a revolution would start. But it did. So when I just think about this whole process and sort of just the ridiculousness of what we do, and I just want to have this message to white people, I just want to tell them to take a step back, like relax for a second. Stop patting yourself on the back. Stop talking about how great you are. Stop doing everything about you and try to actually do something positive. And stop being so snobby. It's not helping. And the truth is, I thought that writing these books and writing the blog would actually help me stop being so snobby. It hasn't worked at all. I try my best to listen, and I try my best to be tolerant, and I can't do it. And so I always say that, the snobbish in white people is so ingrained that we would rather have you root around our medicine cabinet than our bookshelf. Because you can go to rehab for Vicodin addiction. You can't go to rehab for Dan Brown. It's true. It's absolutely true. So I hope with the message that will come across to white people is just take a step back and, look around you. Stop being so full of yourself. And, easier said than done. Look at me. And so this is what's happened since I was last here. All of this stuff has been amazing. It's been fantastic. Like, all of it is overwhelmingly positive. But I'd be lying if I said everything that has happened has been overwhelmingly positive. After all, I write on the internet. And so I always like to tell people who don't fully get this about how, not dangerous, but how quickly race wars escalate on the internet, is that if you were to post a video on YouTube of a laughing, giggling baby, just 30 seconds. Just baby's laughing. It's adorable. Comment 1. What a cute baby. Comment 2. Fuck that white baby. Wait 4 seconds. Hit refresh. 8,000 comments. Every ethnic slur in the world thrown back and forth from a laughing, giggling baby. So you can imagine when you write about race and white people, what sort of response you start to get. So I get a lot of people criticizing me, like outrageously criticizing me. So I have got an email before that has come in, and the email actually says, "You piece of garbage, you're horrible. I hope you go to jail and get raped and get AIDS, but die slowly so that you can watch the rest of your family die from cancer. I hate you, Anonymous." And this email came about because I had the audacity to say that white people like yoga, right? So just imagine how much hate is flowing through the internet, that this is what's coming back to me. So aside from the stupid criticism, the overly stupid criticism of wishing death upon me for saying, white people like Anthony Bourdain, this is what I'm dealing with. But the other criticism that I usually get is people would write in and they would say things like, this is elitist and Stein. I'm like, yeah, I know. And then they would say, well, I'm like I was saying before, I'm not white and I like all of these things. And I'm like, well, look, man, don't worry about it. First of all, you are white. Second of all, I never said this site was stuff only white people can like. It's still called stuff white people like, and they generally get it after that. But then I keep encountering the same criticism from the same idiot over and over and over again. It's a guy who's like, yeah, you know what, man? If you were to site called stuff black people like, it would be racist. Boom. Like they think they've got me with something. And I'm just sort of like, yeah, you know what? You're right. It would be racist, but I wrote a site called Stuff White People Like. Here's a picture. Dude, it's okay. And when I write back, they're like, okay, all right, I guess that kind of makes sense. But you know what, man? It's so ridiculous, still unfair. It's like, why is it always okay to make fun of white people, man? Why is it always okay to make fun of white people? I don't think that's fair, You can't make fun of black people, you can't make fun of Latinos, you can't make fun of Asians, but anyone can make fun of white people? That's ridiculous, that's unfair. And they're so angry at this perceived double standard. And I always write back and I say, you know what? It is always, perpetually, for the rest of time, acceptable to make fun of white people. There is never an instance where it is not appropriate to make fun of white people. And he's like, what? No way, come on, man, that's not true. And I'm like, yes. It's very true. Let me explain why. There is currently no ethnic slur for a white person that actually hurts. Dead serious. Anyone in here who is offended at being called a honky or a cracker is reaching, okay? We actually are like, if someone calls us one of that, we're like, oh, yes, is this what racism feels like? This is great. Like, it's not genuinely offensive. It doesn't hurt. It's not rooted in anything. It never hurts. And so, like, even, like, old ethnic slurs from the olden days that might have hurt in, like, the 20s or something don't hurt anymore because it all worked out great. And so there is no slur that you can use. And this is why I make the joke. This is why white people always get history degrees, because it always has a happy ending for them. Think about it, but it's true. And so then people are like, but come on, man. Like, I get into fights with white people all the time. They're so obnoxious, and it's so unfair. The honky cracker thing, they just want more of it. It doesn't work. Is there anything I can call them that hurts? Is there anything out there that hurts? And I'm like, yeah, there is one thing. If you get into a fight with a white person, and it's escalating, and you just want to have that one thing, that one word, you reach back, and you're just like, bam, you throw it on the table like a trump card. Call them average. Nothing will hurt them more. That will sting with them for like a week. They're like, why did he call me average? I need to talk to him about this. You can ruin a vacation before a white person leaves if you call them average. So that is the term, but that is also why it is always acceptable to make fun of white people. So if you're not white, never shy away from making fun of white people. Just go for it. It doesn't hurt. You're going to be fine. Don't even sweat it. So the new book that's out is Whiter Shades of Pale. It's a regional guide to white people across America. And I was trying to think of a non-douchey way to bring this up, but there really isn't. It was recently reviewed in the New York Times. Wait, what was that question? Was it? Yeah, it was reviewed in the New York Times. Thanks. I heard it coming in from the audience there somewhere. Thank you for bringing that up. And, the New York Times called it preternaturally excellent. No big deal. I am getting that tattooed right, actually over my belly, like Tupac's Thug Life. I'm getting it done right over here. Sorry I had to bring that. I know it's douchey, but it was like literally one of the biggest moments of my life. It was awesome. So it has all these regional sections on white people. So we have like the Washington, D.C. white person, which is actually the Obama family. Because I make the case that Obama, though he is our first black president, is also our first white president. Because of the following, he has an organic vegetable garden. He drives a hybrid. He went to law school, went to an Ivy League school, and he has the one accessory that all white people want: black children. So first white president, not black. So yeah, so that goes throughout, and then we have Minneapolis and all this sort of stuff. And people always ask me, they're like, "Well, so how did you come up with this? How do you define a white city?" And I said, anywhere where property values outstrip income is a white city. So Portland, Oregon, Madison, Wisconsin, Austin, Texas, basically any place where you wonder, how can anyone afford to live here? That is a white city. Hey, San Francisco. Hey, San Jose. Hey, everywhere to Bakersfield. So yes, I this was the concept, was this regional guide, and it was really awesome. I got to have these drawings done, so the little regional drawings of the white people, and it was really funny. I did a lecture in Arkansas, at the University of Arkansas, and when I got there, these two senior graphic designers, had done 100 unique Stuff White People Like posters for my appearance, and I was just blown away, because the logic was, they were like, we're going to do it, it'll be a portfolio piece for our artwork eventually, but let's just do it and see if he likes it. And I got there, and I was blown away. They were everywhere, and they were gorgeous, beautifully designed. And I'm like, do you guys want to sell these on the website? And they're like, yeah, that'd be incredible. And then when I got the idea to do this, I asked them, like, do you guys think you could do line drawings of obnoxious white people? And they're like, yeah, I think we got this. And I was so happy to have designers that I could trust and I could work with. So they did all the line drawings for the site, and they are the ones for the book, and they're the ones who really made this come alive. And I can't thank them. It was awesome. So the regional was a bit of a change from the first one. And the other thing was a bit of a change was, I'm a little older now. So when I wrote the first book, I was 29 years old. And so my snobbery was almost entirely dedicated to music. Like, it was just, I literally spent like an hour every day checking music blogs, and it was just so much work. It was so exhausting. And I was so frustrated by it all that by the time I turned 30, I realized, I'm like, I can't keep this up forever, man. I'm exhausted. And I noticed what had changed was, after 30, you replace your music snobbery with food snobbery. And the reason why we do this as white people is that you can never be the oldest guy at a restaurant. You know what I mean? Like, being at a concert, looking around and being like, oh my God, everyone here is 23 years old. Restaurant, looking around, you're like, all right, fitting right in. This is fantastic. It's like being at a craps table in Las Vegas. I don't know if any of you play craps, but if you go there and you're under 60, you're always the youngest guy there. It's awesome. You feel fantastic. So I realized that my snobbery had really changed considerably. And so I thought the book was going to reflect that. So before I open up the questions, I have a couple readings in here. They're good ones. And you should have a point of pride, because in the new book, Google made it. It was, I took a long time figuring it out, how to get it in there, how I was going to do it. Additionally, Google appears again. I have a section for acceptable reasons for a white breakup, and had an @yahoo.com email address was one of the things. Because yeah. I don't have to explain it any further. You guys all get that. So there's a few other entries for San Francisco before I get to Google. So I'm going to read 3 of them from the new book that I like. Number 58, hating people who wear Ed Hardy. Often it can be easier to find common ground with a white person by talking to them about something you both hate. Discussing things you both like might lead to an argument over who likes it more or who liked it first. Clearly, the safest route is mutual hatred. When choosing to talk about something that white people hate, it's best to choose something that will allow white people to make clever comments. Or at the very least, feel better about themselves. Currently, the easiest way to do that is ask a white person for their thoughts on people who wear Ed Hardy. Ed Hardy is a clothing company that makes a wide range of expensive t-shirts, hoodies, and jeans. These clothes are notable for their use of elements from classic tattoo designs such as skulls, hearts, and dragons. On the surface, the use of the words classic, tattoo, and t-shirt would suggest a logical fit for white people, but that's not the case. The right kind of white people hate these clothes unilaterally, and it is advised that you merely accept that at face value. If you were to ask a person why a regular-sized dragon logo is okay, but one that goes around the neck is not, you'd be trapped in an hour-long and fruitless conversation. To put this in proper perspective, Ed Hardy is so hated by white people that it cannot be worn ironically. This is no small feat. As it stands now, the only other things that can't be worn ironically by white people are Nazi uniforms, Ku Klux Klan robes, and self-tanner. Since you cannot in good conscience have an Ed Hardy themed party, the best way to make use of this white hatred is to give your stories a little more appeal to white people. For example, if you take the reasonable but not compelling story, I got cut off in traffic this morning, and when I honked, the guy gave me the finger and replaced it with, I got cut off in traffic this morning by this guy in an Ed Hardy shirt. I honked and then he gave me the finger. The story will become 60% more interesting to white people because it allows them to make a witty response like, I guess that douchebag had to get to a UFC party or a nightclub event that he was hosting. Follow this up with a laugh, a high five, and a compliment about the acceptable shirt that the white person is wearing, and you'll find yourself with a brand new friend. And so this one always makes me think of Jersey Shore. And I admit that I still watch it because it's like the self-tanning and the Ed Hardy shirts. And I have this fantasy. I wish that I could go back in time to like the turn of the 20th century at Ellis Island and see all the Italian immigrants coming in and show them a DVD of what was going to happen. It'd be like, welcome to America. Here's what's going to happen in about 90 years. They'd be like, you know what? We're going to go back to Italy. We'll just deal with World War II. It's all going to work out great. I in good faith can't let this happen to my lineage. So yeah, an interesting world to say the least. All right. Last one before Google. Number 59, swimming. Among the physical activities most enjoyed by white people, swimming remains right near the top. In fact, swimming is the one activity that remains constant throughout the life of a white person. They begin with swim lessons as a child, join a swim team in high school, train for a triathlon after college, and then swim as a way to stay in shape after 50. If you ask any white person over 50 how they stay in shape, the answer will inevitably be swimming laps, or perhaps more accurately, swimming laps in a Speedo. For those of you at a gym with a pool, you know what I'm talking about. It is hard to say exactly why white people love swimming so much, but there are a number of theories. First, of all the great tragedies to befall white people in the water, they were actually brought about by white people. Shark attacks, getting lost at sea, and the Titanic. Though the latter was technically a tragedy brought about by an iceberg, it was still a white iceberg that did it. Aside from these minor hiccups, swimming has been a pleasurable activity for white people for generations. Another theory of why white people enjoy swimming so much is their ability to completely dominate the sport. Of course, this domination doesn't come from years of training and crushing competition. It owes mostly to the fact that white people only have to compete against other white people. This is in turn because even at the highest levels, non-white competitors are mostly limited to a few over-eager Chinese Olympians or some adorable underdog from a third world country who just learned to swim. Swimming at the Olympics is actually another example of how good white people are at figuring out how to maximize the few ways in which they can eke out athletic dominance. White people have helped to ensure that you can win medals in swimming for different distances, relays, and most importantly, different strokes. So white athletes can win upwards of 5 medals for doing the butterfly, the backstroke, and the backstroke. But in track, a sport long abandoned by white people, they could not attain additional medals for running backwards or doing a crab walk. I mean, it seems right. You know, like if you can get a different medal for doing a butterfly, you should get a medal for, running sideways. Sadly, there seems to be no end in sight for white people's dominance of competitive swimming. For further proof, go to the nearest computer, type in swim team into Google, then click on the images tab, and you will see more white flesh than a Mormon orgy. Competition and pleasure are logical reasons why white people would enjoy swimming, but they're not the only factors that will put white people in the water. Many white people will engage in something called polar bear events, where they gather on a beach in the middle of winter, quickly jump into a partially frozen lake or ocean, and then run back to waiting blankets and warm beverages. This is often done to remind white people that they are alive. Because for white people, nothing makes them appreciate the gift of life more than voluntarily trying to end it. Why do we do that? And finally, number 60, Google. Thanks to a middle school reading of the book 1984, virtually all white people have an intense fear of a Big Brother type of organization that monitors all of your actions and compiles terabytes of data on you, your family, and everything that you do. A white person can think of nothing more frightening than some strange company holding all of their information and using it for their own benefit. That is, unless the company happens to be Google, then everything's fine. White people have spent the past decade happily handing over as much of their life as possible to Google, email, work documents, video chat, payment systems, news sources, and all of their internet searches. If Google offered to digitize and store all financial and medical records, white people would be among the first to jump aboard. Partly because this would make dating much easier for white people, because the ability to use your phone to view a sexual history report and a 401k statement could save you hours of indirect, thinly veiled questions. There are a number of reasons why white people have been so eager to hand their lives over to Google. The first and most obvious reason is simple peer pressure. If you've ever exchanged email with a white person, there is a 100% chance their email address ended in gmail.com. Of course, some white people have an @mac.com address, but even those people know they'll need an @gmail.com address if they want anyone to take them seriously. But one of the biggest reasons why white people love Google is simply the company itself. It's famous for providing all of its employees with perks like free food, ball pits, arcade machines, and pretty much anything else that will take the misery out of coding for 18 hours a day. Finally, Google is renowned for having a very selective hiring process that enables them to bring on only the best and brightest people on Earth. So naturally, every white person believes that they should be working there. When a white person with a job that you covet begins complaining, simply tell them they should be working at Google. The pull of .com money, endless perks, and working in a selective environment will be too strong, and they'll immediately begin searching for a job. While they're filling out Google's strange questionnaire, inform your superior that the white person is looking for a new job, and enjoy your new promotion. So, thank you for indirectly getting all sorts of white people fired. But that is my talk, my update, and a few of my readings. If you guys have any questions for me, I'm more than happy to answer them. Any questions about white people or about me, I'm more than happy to answer them. You just come up to the mic here so it's recorded.
We have one... Hello.
Hello.
We have one question from a distributed office.
Uh-huh.
They wonder, I'm worried I don't care enough about the environment, microbrews, and the evil corporations not named Apple. Could you give me tips on how better to portray the angst these important issues cause me?
How better to portray?
Yes.
Oh, man. But they don't legitimately care about it. T-shirts. T-shirt form or bumper sticker form are the only two things that white people understand. So just slap an Apple sticker on the back of whatever car it is that you're driving. Everything will be just fine. Get a threadless shirt. Chilling. Stickers on, I know, I see some of them right now. This is a big white dilemma, right? Because if you cover it up, how are people at the coffee shop going to know you're creative? It's like the same thing with Moleskine notebooks, right? You know what I mean? It's like, they don't provide any additional functionality over a 99-cent notebook, but come on. You know what I mean? So, same sort of thing.
I'd like to speak about shades of white.
Shades of white?
Yes. I came here from Russia, which is mostly white.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed when I had my first questionnaire, which has questions about your race, it
Mhm.
says white not Hispanic,
Yeah.
Caucasian, and I had some urge to cross the Asian Pacific Islander. That's where I'm from.
We all want to cross up Pacific
So
Islander.
I got lost and I asked someone, because for me, Caucasian doesn't make sense because it's like a, Chechen branch of Al-Qaeda.
Yeah.
So when I said white, not Hispanic, and then the conversation started from there. Do you have a take on what these things are?
Yeah, I got this covered. I have been trying to get the census to update for quite some time now. There's a test at the back of the first book to determine how white you are, exactly. Because I think determining whiteness by skin color is, we're done with that. We're finished with that. I think that you should just check all the things that you like, and then you should be assigned a percentage white that you are, and that should count as your ethnicity. I think that would probably be a little less confusing than adding all these things. That would at least be my policy on it. But it's a tough one, I understand. Anybody else?
What is your favorite single malt scotch?
My favorites. What I like, this is like a 2-level deep question. You already assume that I drink single malt scotch, which is correct. You also assume that I will be snobby about it, which is also correct. The proper answer is my favorite single malt scotch is the one I can't afford. For those of you who drink scotch, you understand. But other than that, Lefroy is my favorite. Lefroy 18 year is fantastic. 25 is what I want, but I don't have $600 to buy one. Good question. Great question. Anybody else? All right. Well, then I guess I'll let you guys get back to work. And thank you guys so much for coming out to hear me talk again. And I'll stick around to sign books. Or if there are any questions that are too personal about white people that you don't want to ask, in public, which I understand, we are a judgmental people. I've tried to make that clear. Feel free to come up and ask me, or if you want a goofy picture of me, that's fine too. But make sure that when you get the picture taken, I'm holding the book up. Otherwise, people will be like, hey, you met Seth Rogen. Thanks, everybody.